Part 24. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 231. Chapter 231 Xiaowu's Opportunity 2. He couldn't understand it and thought that this stone gate deserved a beating. He mumbled a few words and stepped in on the gravel. Who is this person who came to live here? After Xiaowu entered, he saw that it was a large stone room with beds, tables, and stools, but they were all made of split stones. They were smooth and very delicate. He touched around and sat on the stools. After walking around the house for a while, he remembered that he was looking for a way out. It's just that this house is the end. Where can we get out? And did the people living here get out of the hole at an unknown height? He doesn't have the ability to go out. Is he going to die trapped here? Xiaowu panicked now. He was scurrying around in the stone house like a headless fly. Huh, what is this? Xiaowu lifted his feet and looked at the winding lines under his feet, with 6 grooves on them. He touched his head, it looked like a formation. Everything he saw in Fangxi was engraved on a disc. What formation was engraved on the ground? He looked at the 6 grooves, which were used to install spiritual stones. He understood this. 3 words immediately flashed in his mind: teleportation array. So he took out 6 spiritual stones and installed them. He thought that this formation must be some kind of teleportation formation. He is not a newbie who doesn't know anything now. Sure enough, after the spiritual stone was installed, the winding lines on the ground glowed with silvery white light, and those lines seemed to be alive, slowly starting to rotate, and after a while, they formed a silver spider web. An idea flashed in Xiaowu's mind, and he stepped on it with one foot. Suddenly, Xiaowu felt that the net had a strong force sucking him in. He instinctively panicked, but thinking that it was a teleportation array, he immediately relaxed his mind. Then his whole body was sucked in. Bang! At the other end, Xiaowu was thrown out. At this moment, his whole body was in bad shape, his internal organs felt like they had been pulled out of his body, and his head was still spinning. Wow 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 wow, Xiaowu couldn't help it, opened his mouth and vomited out the contents of his stomach. Ah, I'm so dizzy, Xiaowu finished vomiting, lying on the ground with his eyes closed, and uttered something uncomfortably. Bah! What kind of teleportation array is this? I will never sit in that teleportation array again. I will faint to death. Half an hour later, Xiaowu opened his eyes, cursed and got up. Huh? I haven't gone out yet. Xiaowu got up and saw that he was still in a stone room. This is an empty stone chamber. There is not only one teleportation array, but also another one. Xiaowu circled around the grooved teleportation array, which was the same as the previous one. Is this the teleportation array for going out? Xiaowu held his stomach. He didn't want to sit in the teleportation array anymore. Forget it, let's go outside and take a look. There is a door to the stone room, which is open. He walked out of the stone room in a few steps. Hinging but busing sips way off longs from me process. Eh? That's not right. Xiaowu patted his head. He always forgot to use his spiritual sense. He was a monk, a monk. He just looked at it with his spiritual consciousness. TCH, he's a dead man, I'm scared to death. Xiaowu poked the man in black with his flying sword, but the black clothes turned into ashes upon touching, exposing the bones inside. Xiaowu simply threw away a few dust removal techniques, and finally a naked corpse lay on its side on the ground. There was also a storage bag on the body. Xiaowu picked it up with a flying sword and hung it on his waist, and then he took a look at this place. There is not just one stone room here, but 4. This is a hall. There is nothing in the hall except the corpse and a set of stone tables and benches. He walked around the corpse and walked to the first stone room. Hey, so many elixirs, Xiao Wu looked at the elixirs in the stone house, and he was very surprised. He looked at it for a while. There were not many elixirs but many weeds. Most of them were wilting and dying. He didn't recognize these elixirs, but his fourth sister recognized that there were still space seeds. He didn't care what they were, he just pulled them all out and threw them into his storage bag. After taking the elixir, he raised his legs to leave. He always felt that something was wrong. Oh, by the way, no one takes care of this elixir, so why is it still alive? What about the dirt? Xiao Wu patted his head. He turned back and grabbed a handful of soil and looked through it. Then he turned over the soil on the ground to reveal the stone slabs. The soil on the stone slab was not thick. Xiao Wu was sure that the soil was extraordinary, so he simply collected the soil and gave it back to the fourth sister. Then, he looked at the other two stone rooms. One was a bedroom with a stone bed and a futon on it, and the other was empty. He returned to the bedroom and prepared to rest for a while before taking the teleportation array out again. The dizziness from before was not over yet. Xiao Wu sat on the futon on the stone bed and began to meditate. Hey, did you absorb this spiritual energy so quickly today? Xiao Wu finished practicing and stared at the futon under his butt. Is this it? As soon as he moved his buttocks onto the stone bed, he ran the technique a few more times. These rounds were the same as usual. He moved his back again and started running the technique again, and it was indeed faster again. This is still a treasure, Xiao Wu was overjoyed. His spirit was weak at first, and with this help in the future, his cultivation level would still continue to grow. Ha ha ha, I found the treasure. Xiao Wu rolled around on the stone bed a few times and was very happy. This monk's futon is a treasure, so the contents of his storage bag should be good too. After Xiao Wu got over his excitement, he remembered the storage bag. He straightened up, turned over and sat up, took off the storage bag from his waist, and poured out all the contents. I'm really rich. Xiao Wu threw himself on the pile of things, and it took him a long time to get up. Ha ha ha, a lot of spiritual stones, and a few flying swords, comprehensive explanation of ancient formations. Xiao Wu looked at each piece one by one, sometimes opening his mouth wide and sometimes smiling from ear to ear. When there were only a few clothes and a few jade slips left on the ground, he burned the clothes. Isn't this burned? Is it still a treasure? Xiao Wu picked up a black robe from the burnt ashes. He looked at it and found it to be in good condition. He struck a few times with his flying sword, but his clothes were still not damaged. Okay, Xiao Wu was so happy. He put his clothes on for a while, so that he wouldn't have to worry about those monsters when he went out. As soon as he entered here, he was chased and beaten by monsters, and he was caught by the dead monster fox. In his panic, he stepped on the air and fell into this place, but he was not eaten by the monsters. Xiao Wu couldn't help but shudder when he thought about how ferocious the monsters here were. Thinking about his big brother and the others outside, he felt bad again. Even with the baby in his body, he was not as happy as before. He quickly looked at the few jade slips on the ground, and then hurried out to kill as many monsters as possible. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 232. Chapter 232 Chapter 232 Deciding to join the Haoyu sect. 9 turns of fire. Lotus Xiao Wu looked at this technique, and his depressed heart was completely excited. This was simply a technique tailor-made for him. Ha 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 ha, God has treated him well. Xiao Wu was so excited that he rolled on the stone bed a few times. When the excitement was almost over, Xiao Wu put the things away. He came out to the hall outside and saw the white corpse on the ground. He wondered if he could help him bury him by taking his belongings. Looking at this place, he saw that it was all stones, and the only soil was collected by himself. Then take him out and bury him outside. Xiao Wu walked towards the corpse. When he was about to get closer, a panic suddenly surged in his heart. He quickly took a few steps back and stared at the corpse for a long time. The monk's sixth sense was very strong, and he didn't believe it was just an illusion. Xiao Wu frowned. He was hesitating whether to collect the corpse, but his feeling told him not to get close to the corpse. In the end, Xiao Wu did not collect it. He felt that he should cherish his life and stay away from danger. He patted his and walked to the teleportation array, installed the spirit stone. After the array was activated, he drilled into it and disappeared. After Xiao Wu left, the corpse let out a strange and weak sigh. What Xiao Wu didn't know was that he escaped. It's true that the owner of the corpse still had a ray of soul. He tried his best to keep this ray of soul when he died. When a monk came in and encountered his corpse, he could seize it. Xiao Wu, on the other hand, acted out of instinct. He never touched the corpse from the beginning, so he escaped. Xiao Wu actually doesn't understand these things like seizing a body. He can only say that he is lucky and has strong perception. Let us say that Yuan and Xiao Jin finally found Yu Xiao and the other 5 in the forest, and Xiao Shi rescued the remaining apprentices. The ones with single spiritual roots and those with 2 spiritual roots that were measured this time were not sent in, so Mujukan, Shitu and Yu11 did not enter. In other words, everyone except Xiao Wu has been found. Yuan has already sent them to space for treatment. Fortunately, each of them was seriously injured, but none of them were fatal. They recovered after a period of training. On this day, when Yuan and his 3 servants were killing each other in the forest, a man suddenly appeared from mid-air. There was a bang sound, and the man fell back to the ground. Ouch, my butt, Xiao grinned and grunted. Ah, 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 a few snow-white moon wolves happened to see a big piece of fat falling from the sky, and they snarled and pounced on Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu, hurry up, get out of the way. During the fight, Yuan caught a glimpse of Xiao Wu. She swung her sword to kill the white moon wolf in front of her, and let Xiao Jin fly to Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu heard the voice of his 4th sister. When he wanted to respond, 4 white moon wolves had already pounced on him. He did not hide. He glanced sideways at the 4 white moon wolves and ignored their attacks. He channeled his spiritual power into his hands and punched the white moon wolves who rushed towards him on the forehead with 2 bangs. Yuan saw that he did not dodge but attacked with bare hands. She didn't care that she was on Xiao Jin's back, jumped down and slashed at Bai Yuelang from behind with her sword. It can be said that the 2 siblings took action at the same time. When Yuan swept Bai Yuelang, her body was hanging in the air. Xiao Jin knew that its master was about to fall to the ground, so it swooped down and made a snake meat mat for Yuan, who fell. Hiss, Xiao Jin spit out the core, it hurt so much. Xiao Wu knocked down 2 white moon wolves, and 1 Yuan was not hit. The remaining one opened its mouth wide and bit his arm with its sharp white teeth. Crack, there was a crisp sound. The white moon wolf seemed to be biting on the extremely hard ore, and the upper and lower rows of teeth were bitten off. Ah, the white moon wolf howled a few times, turned its head and jumped a few times before disappearing into the forest. Yuan lay on Xiao Jin's back with a confused look on her face. What kind of clothes was Xiao Wu wearing, or when did he practice some exercises? So awesome! Xiao Wu was also stunned for a moment, and then he smiled. He touched his clothes, quickly collected the 3 wolf corpses on the ground, and walked a few steps to Yuan. 4th sister, you've come back to life. He waved his palm in front of Yuan's eyes. Ah, oh, Yuan K climbed up from Xiao Jin's back and sat down, patted Xiao Jin's back and asked Xiao Wu to come up. Xiao Wu shook his head. He saw a small snake killing everyone in all directions. He waved his hand, summoned the flying sword and said, 4th sister, no need, I'm going. Yuan then paid attention to Xiao Wu. He fell from mid-air and was not injured at all. The clothes on his body must have protected him. Since Xiao Wu has defense means, she lets Xiao Wu join the battle. Xiao Jian, let's start work. Originally, Master Yuan and his 3 servants had already made the monsters in the forest kneel down and beg for mercy. Now, with the addition of a fierce Xiao Wu, the number of monsters in the forest gradually decreased. The 2 siblings collected more corpses of monsters. When the 1-month deadline was almost up, the surviving monks all ran towards the exit. Yuan now entered the space with Xiao and Tu. Yu Heiran and the others' injuries have already healed, and they are currently sitting at the table in front of the wooden house. Xiao Ser, is it time for training? Yu Heiran saw them coming in and hurriedly stepped forward and asked. Well, I just came in to ask you, do you want to enter the sect? If you want to, I will let you go out. If you don't want to, just stay in the space. Yu Heiran's brothers and sisters did not say a word, but her disciples nodded to go out. You have to think clearly, How Yu sect is not a good place to go. If you don't join the sect, the master can still provide resources for you to practice, and hers is no less or worse than How Yu sect's. Yu smiled and said, Master, we have discussed and thought about joining the section. Okay, Yuan could only nod in agreement. This was what she had promised them back then, and she would stay with them when she came to the world of immortality. Xiao Ser, let's all join the section. Yu Heiran finally said that they all want to join the section, although it is cruel, it is more tempering. Uncle is going too. Yuan looked at Feng Yuan. He was already in his 30s, and he was once an emperor. He might not have a good life after leaving the sect. Feng Yuan was a little hesitant, but Feng Yunjing pulled down his sleeve, and he nodded. Xiao Lu, what about you? 4th sister, I'm with my eldest brother and the others, or you can join us and enter the section. After Xiaoliu finished speaking, he quickly grabbed Yu Heiran's hand. Yuan didn't say anything. To be honest, she really didn't want to join the sect, but she was alone and felt like she was separated from them. She is a person who yearns for freedom and cannot stand restrictions. Once she enters the sect, this uncle or that master will not say anything when meeting her, and there are many rules and regulations. What's more, when they enter the sect, they must be at the lowest level. There will inevitably be some dirty things that she can't stand, and they will inevitably be in trouble. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 233. Chapter 233, Climbing the Ladder to Heaven. But thinking about how her uncle and the others would be bullied in the future and no one would make decisions or stand up for them, she sighed and agreed to join the sect. Now that everything was decided, she took them all out of the space. Of course, Little Snake Xiaojin and Mr. Mew stayed in the space. When they saw Mujukan, they would see where to place them. Xiao Ser, let's go out. Yu Heiran saw that someone had already gone out. Good. They followed him out and then returned to the grassland along the same route. Yuan took a look and found that the number of people who came out was estimated to be less than 2/3, but even the remaining 1/3 was quite a lot. There were still 30,000 to 40,000 people. But most of the 30,000 to 40,000 people were in a daze, faltering, without any joy of having passed the experience, and they were heavy and sad. She knew that the world of immortality was cruel, but she didn't know that it was so cruel. Tens of thousands of people fed the monsters just because they said they were feeding them. If wars broke out from time to time like in the secular world, she didn't dare to think how many people would die. In short, human lives in this world of immortality are not valuable, so many lives were easily ruined by the Hao Yu sect. When we arrived on the grassland, everyone separated and went back to their original flying boats. When Yuan arrived, the number of people in front of Fias was less than 1/5 of the previous number. But she saw the two foundation building monks frowning. Not a single monk standing in front of the flying boat said a word. Everyone knows what they went through inside, and probably also understands the intentions of Hao Yu sect. Can you be happy? When no one came down from the mountain anymore, the two foundation building monks couldn't wait to let them get on the flying boat and fly back. This time we really came to the sect, but we just put them all at the foot of the mountain. Have you seen it? This is the ladder to heaven. There are 999 ladders. You must climb at least 400 ladders to be qualified to enter the section. Of course, you cannot use any auxiliary things on the ladder to heaven. Once discovered, go down the mountain. The time limit is 1 day. If you fail to meet the requirements after 1 day, someone from the sect will arrange to send you back to Hao Yu City. A foundation building monk pointed to the stone steps leading to the mountain in front of them. As soon as he finished speaking, some people rushed up the ladder to the sky. It was just 2 or 3 steps up that it was still unclear what the ladder was. But as they went up, the pace of those people slowed down. Although Yuan doesn't know what's so clever about climbing the ladder to heaven, it is nothing more than a test of a person's character, toughness, and understanding. Many people came up one after another, and at this time Yu Heiran and the others came over. Xiao Sier, let's come up too. Yuan nodded, okay, but no matter what happens on the ladder to heaven, if you want to enter the sect, don't give up. I guess there are not only gravity but also formations on it, so be careful. Everyone nodded towards her. The 3 brothers Yu Heiran were the first to step onto the ladder to heaven, followed by Xiao Wu and Xiao Lu, and the last one was Yuan. When she stepped onto the first level, she didn't feel anything. There was nothing strange about the second or third level. On the 4th step, I felt a sudden weight on my shoulders, and my steps unconsciously slowed down. Just as she thought, the first level was gravity, which tested the monk's toughness. This level is not difficult. Even Xiaoliu and their group climbed more than 200 stairs. Hu ho, 4th sister, go up on your own and leave me alone, I'm about to die. Xiao Lu gasped for air, sat down on the ladder, and said to Yuan. Who says it's not possible? Get up quickly, 4th sister will help you. After saying this, Yuan leaned over to help her, which made her heart tremble. This child's words were too scary. Don't you remember what the 4th sister said? If you want to enter the sect, you must persevere. We don't require how high you go, 400 stairs are required. Okay, 4th sister, let's go. Xiao Lu wiped the sweat from his forehead with his sleeves and climbed up step by step, leaning on Yuan. Xiao Sier, you haven't gotten up yet, the sun has hit your buttocks, Feng's voice rang in Yuan's ears. Yuan opened her eyes, and sure enough, a ray of dazzling sunlight shone in. She rubbed her eyes and got up, got dressed, washed up, and then went downstairs. Princess, General Mu has invited you to go to the maple leaf forest outside the city. He said he has something very important to tell you. He urged her to hand her a letter, turned around and left. Mujukan asked me to go outside the city. Yuan was a little confused. He had nothing to say, so why should he go to meet outside the city? She hadn't practiced yet today. Yuan felt something was wrong with this matter, but she couldn't think of anything wrong at the moment. She had eaten, and without even practicing, she summoned a little snake to fly out of the maple leaf forest outside the city. The little snake stopped outside an octagonal pavilion. There were 2 guards with swords guarding the pavilion. When they saw Yuan coming, they bowed to her and saluted, and invited her to enter the pavilion. In the pavilion, a man and a woman stood facing the wind. The man was handsome and the woman was pretty, and they were an indescribably perfect match. They just looked at her with smiles, without any sense of disobedience, as if they should be like this. Yuan also looked at them. For a moment, she turned her eyes to the woman standing next to Mujukan. She was about 17 or 18 years old. She was dressed in white and looked extremely beautiful and spotless. It's just that this face is very unfamiliar. At this time, Mujukin's eyes also fell on the woman in white, feeling indescribable doting and love. Yuan frowned. When had Mujukin ever looked at another woman like this? Her eyes turned cold and she said with a cold tone, "Mujukin, you asked me to come just to watch you show your affection? And why did you come to me?" Mujukin turned his head to look at her, with an indifferent look on his face, completely different from before. He said coldly, "Our engagement has been broken off. Just don't come to me in the future." "You sure?" "Well, sure." Yuan nodded. She looked at them deeply and walked out of the pavilion. Stepping out of the pavilion, she turned around suddenly. Suddenly she remembered that the pavilion had been destroyed by her. How could it be in good condition again? She felt that there was something she had forgotten. What was it? When else did she and Mujukin break off their engagement? They are in the world of cultivating immortals now. Ah, yes, aren't they climbing the ladder to heaven in Hao Yu sect? Boom, suddenly the scene in front of Yuan changed, her eyes suddenly became clear. Wasn't she on the ladder to heaven? Yuan did not move, she was thinking about what she had just experienced. Although it was a fantasy, it was too real, and that woman was so clear and unforgettable. Could it be that deep down in her heart, she was really worried that Mujukin would abandon her one day? She, Yuan, is the most capable person. When did she care about him so much and have such a long-lasting love for her? Maybe she really cares about him, she added in her mind. Looking around, it turned out that Xiaoliu was already in front of her. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 234. Chapter 234 Settlement. She hurriedly caught up step by step. When she and Xiaolu stepped onto the 405th staircase, their eyes suddenly blurred, and they appeared in a large square. "Fourth sister, we passed," Xiaoliu responded, holding her hand and cheering. "Well, let's go see Big Brother and the others." She nodded lightly and led Xiaoliu to look for Yu Heiran and the others in the crowd. There are a lot of people in the square, more than 20,000 disciples. The disciples standing in the square don't know what to do. Everyone is chatting with each other, as if they have forgotten what they have just experienced. That brutal killing. Yuan shook his head. After all, he was not the one who died. He had entered the sect, so who would be immersed in that killing? After all, the sect is just selecting disciples, they are the strong ones. So do they need to be sad? Before the sisters found Yu Heiran and the others, rows of disciples suddenly walked out of the palace above the square. Just like recruiting disciples, a few tables are set up, and a few people sit on them immediately. The more than 20,000 people below immediately stopped talking and looked at the disciples on the stage. There were a few people standing and they took a few steps forward. One of them coughed a few times. After clearing his throat, he said to the people below, "You are all selected disciples. From today on, you are all disciples of the Hao Yu section. When you enter the sect, you must practice hard and make more contributions. Okay, now you will line up one by one to receive the disciple tokens and storage bags distributed by the section." The disciples on the stage told them a lot. They just asked them to go to the outer sect handyman peak and start at the lower level. Every disciple who came into the sect started in this way. Of course, he did not mention the special treatment, and he is already a foundation building monk. As long as the servant disciples have established a foundation, they can leave the servant peak and become disciples at the main peaks of the outer sect. Those who like to make alchemy can go to Dan Peak, those who like to refine weapons can go to Chi Peak, those who like to draw talismans can go to Fu Peak, and of course if you like formations, go to Formation Peak. If you don't like anything, you can go to another school called Ji Unfeng to learn swordsmanship. Anyway, you can learn whatever you want to learn about cultivating immortals, and you will never leave a disciple idle. After the people on the stage finished speaking, people in the square lined up in several rows and began to go up to the stage to receive identity tokens and storage bags. To receive the identity token, use the wooden token given to you when you were in Haoyu City. After it was the sisters' turn to receive the gifts, they returned to the square and waited for the disciples from the deacon hall to take these disciples to the miscellaneous service peak. Yuan looked at the people in Wanjiang. The peak of the handyman should be quite big. Soon everyone in the square was finished, and there were 10 disciples leading them from the right side of the square to another mountain peak. Along the way, Xiaoliu looked around like a curious baby. Fourth sister, this Haoyu sect is so big, several times bigger than the imperial city. Poor child, let her see more of the world in the future. Yuan held her hand tightly, without answering her, and led her to follow the large group. Half an hour later, everyone arrived at the halfway point of a large mountain. The mountain was filled with densely packed small wooden houses, small bamboo houses, small stone houses, and various houses. The only thing that was similar was that they were all small, and they were all one-room houses. More than 20,000 people were divided into several waves, and the 2 sisters were taken to a house on the mountainside. The houses here are dilapidated, and at first glance it seems that no one wants them. This place is too shabby. How can we repair it well in one afternoon? A disciple said with a frown. Yes, senior brother, help us find some more. Yeah, we don't have the tools to repair the house either. Why does the sect treat our new disciples like this? You can't live in love anymore. There is no other open space to accommodate you except here. Practice well, and you can enter the inner gate and climb a mountain by yourself in the future. If you don't understand, it is in the sect manual. If you want to accept the sect's mission, go to the foot of the mountain, just pick it up in the mission hall. The disciple finished speaking impatiently and left without wanting to stay any longer. What an attitude, one person spat at him. The disciples had no choice but to find a house by themselves. Fourth sister, how can we live in this broken house? After the disciples picked out the remaining houses, all that was left was a shelf. It's okay, let's go there. Yuan took Xiaoliu to a spacious wooden house near the stone wall. She took a look and found that the location was not bad, and there was a small pool next to it. There was an acre of abandoned land next to the small pool, which should have been used to grow elixirs. That's it? Boom, boom, boom. After a burst of noise, Yuan removed the wooden planks and building tools from the space, and the 2 sisters began to carry the wooden planks one by one and start banging them. After knocking all afternoon, Yuan took out the meal cooked by Mrsu from the space. Xiaolu, come and eat. Yuan handed a food box to Xiaolu, who was still banging the food. Yes, Xiaolu performed a cleansing operation on her body, took the food box from her fourth sister's hand and put it on the ground. She took out the bowls and chopsticks and started eating. While she was eating, she surrounded them and changed the room into 2 rooms. Wooden house. She felt happy. It turned out that she could also help with the work, and she did a good job. After dinner, the 2 sisters worked until very late to build the wooden house, and then took out some of the sisters' utensils from the space. Fourth sister, I'm going to sleep. As soon as the bed was made, Xiaoliu yawned. After cleaning herself up, she threw her on the bed and fell asleep. Yuan shook her head, covered her with a quilt, took out an array disc from the space and started it, and then she returned to her room. This house looks like a large wooden house from the outside, but she made it into 2 rooms inside. She was worried about Xiaoliu. In this case, if there was any emergency, she could immediately take her into the space. There is no other way, she is the sister, we must take good care of her. She also cleaned herself up before opening the storage bag issued by the section. Inside, there were 2 dusty sect disciple uniforms, 2 spiritual stones, a standard flying sword, and a booklet. She first shed her identity token with blood to identify its owner, and then looked at the disciple's handbook. Except for the 10 inaccuracies, it basically includes all the activities within the sect. Yuan thought about the lack of freedom in the sect, so she didn't have much hope for preferential treatment according to the sect's rules. It was just a matter of seeing what it was, and just not to get into trouble in the future. The disciple registration register states that new disciples do not have to perform the sect's monthly tasks in the first month, and the sect will not provide any benefits to the disciples. Starting from the second month, each handyman disciple must complete the monthly sect tasks, either taking care of the medicine fields, refining elixirs, talismans, formations, or handing over property of equal value, etc. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 235. Chapter 235 Zhongmenfang City. These tasks are not difficult. Everyone is already a monk when they enter the sect, and everyone has some skills in cultivating immortals. The difficulty is that there are tasks every month, so there is not much time for cultivation. Of course you have the ability to take on the tasks of 1, 2, 3, or even multiple years in one go, and finish them all in one go, then you can practice whatever you want. But there is another problem: after you complete the sect's mission, you must earn your own cultivation resources. Because the 2 spiritual stones distributed by the sect every month are not enough to buy a pill. In other words, the sect will not raise a disciple in vain. After Yuan looked at it, she found that she was now at the 12th level of qi refining, and was only one step away from building the foundation. She thought it would be better to build a foundation and enter the main peak of the outer gate as soon as possible. If she was asked to do those tasks every day, she would be depressed to death. The manual states that the tasks of foundation building disciples are relatively light. The only advantage of joining the sect is that the sect provides foundation building pills and exercises. This is also the reason why so many monks are trying hard to join the section. Being a casual cultivator outside is free, but there is no channel for foundation building pills and exercises. Even if you have a spiritual stone, you may not be able to buy it. So no matter how harsh the sect is, so many monks still come in without fear. Now that I'm here, I still hope to build a foundation and continue practicing. Yuan put down the manual. She sighed and lay down. She kept thinking about the woman in the illusion on the ladder to heaven. How could she appear in her illusion for no reason? Is it explaining something? Or does it foreshadow something? The next day, after Yuan got up early to practice some exercises, Xiaolu got up rubbing his groggy eyes. "Fourth sister, you're so early. The sun is shining on my butt. It's still early. I was a little tired yesterday and I can sleep a little longer. I have to get up early to practice tomorrow," Yuan said rudely. She would not spoil her. She was like this. Even if you are 10 years old, you cannot build a foundation. Okay, Xiaolu pouted and agreed, looking indifferent. Sigh, Yuan sighed in her heart. It would be better to let Xiaolu practice more in the section. She had a good life before, but she no longer had any ambition. After dinner, I'm going to find Fangxi. Do you want to come with me? Yuan put the breakfast on the table and asked her. There are a lot of monster corpses in her space. She has to sell them in exchange for spirit stones and give some to Xiao Wu and the others. I have to go. When Xiaoliu heard that he was going to Fangxi, he suddenly became energetic and hurriedly took a bowl to eat breakfast. After the sisters had eaten, they went down the mountain the way they did yesterday and came to the mission hall at the bottom of the mountain. She wanted to ask the old disciples here. They must know where the market is. Such a large sect must have its own branches. They entered the hall, where many disciples were handing in tasks and receiving tasks. She glanced around the hall and found no idle old disciple. Hey, senior brother, is there a market in the sect? Where is it? A disciple who had handed over a task happened to pass by in front of her, So she grabbed him and asked. Well, this is the market. There is a market. Go down the hill from the deacon hall and turn right. It's very big. When the disciple saw the faces of the sisters, he was almost blinded. Thank you. After saying thank you, she pulled Xiao Lu out of the mission hall. Fourth sister, why are you walking in such a hurry? Xiao Liu asked after following Yuan for a while before stopping. It's okay. We will use the face-changing technique when we enter Fang City later anyway. When they went out, they put on the sect disciple uniforms and had the expression on the man's face just now. With such an appearance, they might attract a lot of attention. The scourge. Oh, Xiao Lu nodded in agreement. No matter how stupid she was, she could still figure out the reason. After all, she was also 15 years old. The sisters found a remote place, and after entering, two ordinary-looking female disciples came out. Let's go. Well, fourth sister, my voice hasn't changed yet. Stop talking later, just send me a message if you want anything. Xiao Lu nodded. So the two sisters walked over according to the path the disciple told them. In fact, there were many disciples going along the way. All they had to do was follow them. The two sisters had ordinary appearances, so no one paid them any attention, and they arrived at Fangxi without incident. Sure enough, when the two sisters stood at the gate of Fangxi, they were still surprised. This is a market that is 5 times larger than Pingdingshan. There are pavilions and shops in it. Of course, there are many stalls and street stalls. Yuan held hands with Xiao Lu, who was stunned, and the two of them entered. The shops she went to first included restaurants, elixir shops, talisman shops, formation shops, and magic weapon shops. They were really complete beyond your imagination. She looked at the restaurants carefully. Many restaurants had signs on the outside saying they were buying monster meat. This was the purpose of her visit today, so she looked more carefully. Occasionally, she asked people what kind of monster meat they wanted to buy. These restaurants sell all kinds of casual meals, including breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Most of the people eating spiritual meals in restaurants are wearing blue, green, white, and purple disciples' uniforms, and very few are wearing gray disciples' uniforms. Yuan sighed. Rich people can afford to eat and live everywhere. Eh? Fourth sister, aren't those Brother Jukan and Brother Shitu? Who is the woman in white next to them? Xiao Liu said outside a high-end looking restaurant, pointing to a table of people eating spiritual meals. The woman in white. Yuan's attention is on the word woman in white. She looked in the direction Xiao Liu was pointing, and sure enough she saw the three of them talking and laughing while eating the spiritual meal. Yuan stood motionless, but Xiao Liu ran in very excitedly. Sure enough, they all came out after a while. When Yuan saw the appearance of the woman in white next to Mujukan, her whole body turned to stone. The woman in the illusion of climbing the ladder to heaven has exactly the same appearance, smile, and dress. Yuan opened her eyes wide and staggered in shock. Fourth sister, Xiao Liu rushed out to help her. Mujukan was also surprised. He didn't know why she reacted like this when she saw them. Shouldn't she be happy to see them? Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? Yuan, I just saw a ghost. He has been worried about them for the past month. Unfortunately, his master said that he could not go down the mountain without building a foundation. Wan'er, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Mujukan asked her while holding the other arm, and probed her forehead. A thin layer of sweat formed on her forehead. He frowned. Xiao Lu, what's going on with your sister? Xiao Liu is also inexplicable. The fourth sister was fine just now, but she doesn't know what's going on with the fourth sister? She shook her head. I don't know, we were fine just now, but I went in and asked you to come out, and the fourth sister was like this. Let's go, I'll take you back. When he saw her, he knew something was wrong. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 236. Chapter 236 The Woman in White. He turned to Shishi and the woman in white and said, "If you two have anything to do, just go shopping by yourself. I'll take them back." With that said, he picked up the stunned Princess Yuan and left. Shitu was startled for a moment before he remembered that she was the master with a different appearance. He didn't wait for the woman in white next to him to say anything, raised his legs and ran after her. As for the woman in white standing at the door of the store, she looked at the back of Mujukin who was hugging Yuan and leaving. An inexplicable look flashed in her eyes, and her hands in her sleeves clenched into fists. If possible, she really wanted to go up and knock down the person in Mujukin's arms. No wonder, no matter how she hinted to him, this guy seemed like an uncivilized piece of wood. It turned out that he already had a sweetheart. Just because Mao is so ugly. Yuan, is I ugly? I'm so beautiful that I can beat you all over the streets. Mujukin hugged Yuan and ran behind Xiaoliu. The disciples on the road saw such a strange combination. An impossibly handsome inner disciple, holding an ordinary-looking female disciple in his arms, was running huffing and puffing behind an equally ordinary-looking handyman female disciple. Everyone looked at him strangely, but no one dared to follow him out of curiosity. He was a disciple of the inner sect and could not be offended. Just a few glances at you already shows that someone has a bodhisattva-like heart towards you. It's here, hurry up, brother Jukin, put it here. Xiaoliu quickly opened the door and asked Mujukin to put Yuan on the bed. Mujukin put Yuan down, covered her with a quilt, sat on the edge of the bed, and held her hand tightly with both hands before he calmed down. He looked steadily at Yuan, who was still dazed, and caressed the top of her head. Calling her softly, Waner, wake up quickly and tell me something. What happened? Xiaoliu also sat silently by the bed, her tears streaming down her face. She didn't know why the fourth sister was like this all of a sudden. The woman in white. Xiaolu suddenly remembered the 4 words that the fourth sister said when she entered the restaurant. Brother Jukin, the fourth sister is saying that women in white are like this, Xiaolu said with sobs. Woman in white? Did Waner misunderstand me? Mujukin murmured to himself, blaming himself a little at the same time. In the past, except for a few women he was close to, he almost never let other women get close to him. At this moment, Waner suddenly saw that it was normal not to accept it. It seemed that the 3 of them were still talking and laughing at that time. In fact, he didn't think much about it. The woman was the daughter of him and Shitu's master, and she was their junior sister. After they completed the test in Haoyu City that day, their single spiritual roots and double spiritual roots were immediately sent to Haoyu sect. After another test, when they were asked if they wanted to enter the formation peak, several of them were sent directly to the inner gate formation peak. He and Shitu were accepted as disciples by the master of the formation peak on the spot, and would become his direct disciples after the foundation was established. The woman in white is Yang Shui, the daughter of the peak master Yang Chengfeng. Strangely enough, Yang Shui, who didn't like getting along with her fellow apprentices, seemed to be a different person the moment she saw him, becoming lively and cheerful all of a sudden. Even helped. After all, he and Shitu were new disciples, so there were always things that were unclear. The 2 comings and goings will become familiar. At that time, his master also said that he had made the right disciple, making his taciturn daughter somewhat popular. So that woman fell in love with him instead of treating him as a senior brother? No wonder every time Yang Shui came to look for him, the stone would stick to his side. This is to monitor him and remind him at the same time. Thinking about it now, Shitu looked at her with a look that was like guarding against thieves. He thought Cheetah was not used to being separated from everyone all at once. Alas, he slapped his head hard. He was not stupid, but he didn't think about it at all. This is also because he was careless. He only had honor in his eyes and in his heart. Whether the others were male or female had nothing to do with him. Except of course my own relatives. He gently stroked Yuan's face and said in a gentle voice, "Wan'er, don't worry, I won't let other women get close to me in the future. Can you wake up quickly? I'm so worried when you're like this." For a while, Yuan remained the same. He winked at Xiaolu, who nodded and went out, then closed the door. After Xiaolu went out, Mujukan stood up. He sat on the bed, gently held Yuan in his arms, leaned down and kissed her lips. Only in this way, let her feel that he is there, that he loves her, and make her feel at ease, and maybe she will wake up. Perhaps Yuan really felt his breath and tenderness, and her eyes moved. Mujukan felt happy that it was indeed useful, so he became more and more gentle, and even released his own breath to surround her. After a long time, Yuan's eyes became clearer and clearer, and she rolled her eyes. She woke up. Yuan regained her consciousness and stared at Mujukan's enlarged face, which was close at hand. "Mujukan. Well, I'm here." He finally woke up and took a deep breath. He didn't know that Wan'er, who was fearless today, was so afraid that he would have another woman. He really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He pressed her head on his chest and stroked her gently. Sure enough, not long after, a soft cry came from Yuan in his arms. He did not put her down and let her continue to sleep in his arms. Xiaolu was wandering around outside and almost fainted from the stone. "No, I have to go in and take a look." "Are you going?" she asked the standing stone. Cheetah nodded. He had long wanted to rush in and see the master. Xiaolu knocked on the door. "Come in." Mujukan's soft voice came from inside. Xiaolu opened the door and entered, followed by Shishi. "Shh, don't talk. Your fourth sister is fine." "She is asleep now," Mujukan said softly. The two of them nodded. Xiaolu patted his chest, pulled the stone and went out again. Yuan had a long and uneasy dream. In the dream, Mujukan and the woman in white came again, their long clothes fluttering in the wind. They came to tell her that they were getting married. "You don't want me, and your family doesn't want me either," Yuan asked him. "Do I have any relatives?" Mujukan asked blankly. Yuan's heart sank. Mujukan had a problem. She looked at the woman in white who was holding his arm. The woman in white looked back at her calmly. Her eyes were full of determination, as if everything was under her control. Mujukan was controlled by this woman, and this thought flashed through Yuan's mind. He could leave her behind, but he could never forget his family. Yuan took a deep breath, waved her hand, and Mr. Mu's family instantly appeared in front of him. Since he doesn't want her anymore, he still takes care of his family when she's sick. She's not that mean. Let them fiddle with themselves. No matter how old Mr. Mu shouted at her, she didn't look back. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 237. Chapter 237. Wake up. Girl Wan, don't leave. Mr. Mu's voice lingered in her ears for a long time. Yuan slowly opened her eyes, and her consciousness returned to her cage. When she wanted to get up and sit down, she put her hands on Mujukan's body. She raised her head and saw that he had fallen asleep. She retracted her hand, lay down again, closed her eyes, and thought about the woman in white she saw in the market and the dream she had just had. She couldn't help but frown. When did she become so fragile? It's just a fantasy, a dream, it didn't happen. Just because it happened, Yuan's world collapsed. As long as the sky does not fall, she will not fall. Being an agent for more than 10 years in the previous life was really in vain. I have only lived here for 8 years and I have become so vulnerable. Isn't it a joke to want to build foundations and form elixirs in the future? Across each major level, apart from foundation building, there is no thunder calamity, and there are other forms of elixir formation, uning, and transformation. Not only are there thunder tribulations, but there are also heart-crossing demon tribulations. In her current condition, she cannot survive the inner demon tribulation during the foundation building. Instead of doing this, it is better to go back to the valley to farm. She looked at Mujukin's evil face, it was really hateful, she stretched out her hand and pinched it. This man is gone, she has her eldest brother and the others. Even though he has a face that is admired by thousands of people, only his unchanging soul can be worth her rarity. Are you awake? Mujukin grabbed the hand that was still squeezing his face. Are you okay now? Don't do this again. If you have any questions, just ask me directly. I only have you here. He pointed at his eyes and heart. Mujukin almost felt hurt internally. He said nothing but one word in response. He just shut up. It was already night outside anyway, so he hugged her and fell asleep again. The next day, Yuan got up. She was revived with full blood as if nothing had happened. She made breakfast early and picked up Xiaolu to eat and practice. Fourth sister, I suspect that you were possessed by a ghost yesterday. This is my fourth sister, Xiaolu pouted and looked at Mujukin and whispered. Yuan nodded seriously and said, well, I was indeed scared by a ghost yesterday. I won't be scared anymore. After eating, go to practice quickly, and then we will go to Fangxi. What about you, Mujukin? Me, just in time, I will also go to Fangxi to have a look. We have all entered the section. I want to rent a courtyard in Fangxi so that Grandpa and the others can live. Yuan, is it okay? Mujukin nodded and said, okay, I am an inner disciple, and I am fully qualified to let my family live in the sect's city. In the sect, there are many such situations. How Yu sect is too big, and the disciples of Guang there are 500,000 to 600,000, so the sect has corresponding preferential treatment for the inner disciples. That's okay. You can take a look and see if there is a suitable shop. You can definitely sell it. There are so many of us, all of whom have special skills. They will all use it to sell in the shop in the future. Anyway, it is not selling to anyone, it is not as good as your own family. If you come to sell it, you can still dislike the spiritual stone. Her elixirs and talismans are of excellent quality, so why should she take advantage of others? In this way, Mr. Mu and the others can earn their own cultivation resources. Hey, this is a good idea. Wanner's elixirs and talismans are of good quality. If we really open a shop, the business will be booming. Mujukin's eyes suddenly brightened a little. The sect's shop was not expensive, and he was an inner sect disciple. In addition, he had made a fortune from selling formation discs this month. Buying a shop or renting a small courtyard should not be expensive. What a problem. After reaching an agreement and making a happy decision, the three of them ate and practiced for an hour before going to Fangxi. Today, the three of them used the face-changing technique to come to Fangxi. Mujukin went to look for yards and shops, and Yuan found a big restaurant to sell all the monster meat. Xiaolu went to the street stalls alone. Brother, is this a talisman? Yuan squatted in front of a stall and asked, pointing to a talisman. Yes, junior sister, do you want to buy it? It's very cheap, 100 spiritual stones. 100 spiritual stones are still cheap? Are there any geographical and time requirements? Well, of course we have this. You can't receive the sound transmission from the other party within a range of more than 100 miles. If you don't have time, you can use it as long as it is not damaged. Junior sister, please give me a few. Don't worry, Although senior brother's sound transmission is not the best, good, but by no means the worst, the disciple spared no effort in recommending his talismans, not only the transmission talismans, but also other talismans. Yuan finally bought 10 of them and negotiated the price to 90 spiritual stones each. She bought so many and wanted to take them back to study and see if she could draw them. The collection of talismans given to her by Little Snake only contains the jade talisman for sound transmission, and she cannot carve it out at the moment. Here, without communication equipment, it is really difficult to find someone. She wandered around the market for almost a day and gained a lot. She actually found a seedling of the main medicine of the Foundation establishment pill. Fortunately, she came across it. In addition, she bought many second-level elixir seedlings at low prices. Yuan was in a very unhappy mood. She saw that it was getting late, and Mujukan and Xiaoliu had probably gone back, so she returned to Zhejiang Peak leisurely and contentedly. Fourth sister, you just came back. What treasure did you pick up today that makes you so happy? Sure enough, when they walked to the door, Xiaoliu and Yu Heiran came out. Huh, big brother is here too. Yu Heiran, well, I met Xiaoliu at the foot of the mountain. The three brothers and sisters entered the house. Mujukan had already laid out the food, and the stone was also there. Master, you are back, come and eat quickly. Brother Jukan has been waiting for you for a long time. Shita got up quickly. Just sit down. This room is too small. If you stand up again, you will be crowded. Yuan motioned to Shita to sit down. Waner, brother, Xiaoliu, please sit down and try the food I cooked. Mujukan cast a cleaning spell on his body and told the brothers and sisters to sit down. The three brothers and sisters did it one after another, and Mujukan sat down next to Yuan. Have a taste, he gave Yuan a bowl of soup. Good. Jukan, I heard what Xiaoliu said about yesterday. This kind of thing can't happen a second time. Do you understand? Yu Heiran stopped, but at the same time warned him that next time he wouldn't do it in front of his sister. This gives you face. Mujukan, it's very honorable. As soon as I stepped forward, I beat him so hard that he didn't even recognize his father. Fortunately, he had the best healing elixir given by Waner. Yeah, Mujukan nodded quickly. Stone frowned. He felt that Mujukan's matter had just begun. But he didn't say a word, lowering his head to eat his food. He thought that he would keep an eye on Mujukan from now on to prevent that woman from succeeding. He didn't know why, but he felt very uncomfortable when he saw that woman. She is quite beautiful, but she is inexplicably annoying. She is indescribably annoying. Everyone enjoyed the meal quite happily. Brother, take these jade talismans for transmitting sound. I have all left the mark of my spiritual consciousness after dinner. When Yu Heiran was about to go back, Yuan took out the jade talisman for transmitting sound that he bought today and a storage box. Give him the bag. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 238. Chapter 238. Main ingredient of Foundation Building Pill. Yu Heiran only accepted the transmission note, and he did not ask for the storage bag. Keep the spirit stones for yourself. There are many places for you to use them. Now that we have entered the sect, we can earn them by ourselves, otherwise, there is no point in joining this section. Okay. Yuan took back the storage bag and sent him and the stone away. The three of them returned to the house. Mujukan activated the formation. He sat down and took out several formation discs and placed them on the table. They were obviously much more advanced than the previous ones. What did Waner gain today? Yes, I'm lucky. I picked up the main medicine of the Foundation establishment pill. I want to refine the Foundation establishment pill myself. Yuan nodded. Mujukan, refining it by yourself? You can do it by yourself. The sect doesn't refine many foundation building pills every year, less than 1,000. Think about it, the disciples of the miscellaneous peak alone are over 100,000, let alone the outer section and the inner gate. As soon as the foundation establishment pill comes out, they will rush to grab it. Yuan felt a little upset after hearing this, and she said, so few? Then wouldn't it mean that the disciples at Zayi Peak basically can't get the foundation establishment pill? Isn't it true that here they will work as cows and horses for the sect all their lives? Mujukin shook his head and said, that's not entirely true. There are almost 100 foundation establishment pills distributed, but the way to distribute these 100 foundation establishment pills is to enter another trial site of the sect, called the Outer Territory Battlefield. Inside this Outer Territory Battlefield they are all lingering souls. They are the souls of those who died in the war between the three races of humans and demons 10,000 years ago. Sending the disciples in is to destroy the souls inside. In fact, it is to send the heads, and also to those old monsters. They took over the house. No, I won't go if it's so scary. Xiaolu was frightened and shook his head like a wave. Yuan was too lazy to pay attention to her, and she would not let Xiaolu go. She looked at Mujukin and said, are you going? When will you go? Of course I want to go, the master won't let me go, but I want to earn it with my own ability. If you can get it, you can get it. If you don't get it, Wanner will refine the foundation building pill, so why not wait? Wanner wants to go. There is still 1 month left, and we still have time to prepare. Yuan nodded. She remained silent, fearing that Mujukin probably didn't want to owe his master too much, especially when the incident with that woman came out. Mujukin added, it just happens that this month is enough to get Grandpa and the others settled. Today I visited several shops and houses. Let's go take a look together tomorrow and make a final decision, okay Wanner? Ken. Well, let's meet at the gate of Fangshi tomorrow morning. Mujukin stood up, hugged her, opened the door and walked out of the house. Fourth sister, why don't you keep your brother-in-law? Xiaolu pouted and said, why should you let your brother-in-law go back? Aren't you giving others a chance? She had heard from Shitu that the woman named Yang Shui was eyeing her brother-in-law. Seeing the calm appearance of the fourth sister, she was very anxious. The fourth sister seemed not to care about her brother-in-law at all. Happiness. Okay, let's go to bed. Don't forget that we are in the section. Yuan moved her head and pinched her puffy little face. This little girl has grown up, and it will be difficult to pinch her in the future. On the inner gate formation peak, Mujukin had just walked to his wooden building when a figure flashed out. Senior brother, where have you been? You didn't come back all night last night. Junior sister is worried about you. Mujukin frowned and said, it turns out to be junior sister. Why are you still not sleeping so late? What are you doing here? I'm a grown man and I'm afraid of losing it. Let's go back quickly. After he finished speaking, he walked straight to the wooden building. After entering the house, he closed the door with his backhand. Senior brother, Yang Shui was locked out of the house and saw that Mujukin had gone upstairs and activated the formation. She stamped her feet angrily. She had been waiting here for so long today, and she thought that her senior brother would thank her properly, but she didn't expect that his attitude would completely change from usual. Snort. You thought you could run away, so she glanced at the wooden building in the night, turned around and disappeared into the night. Upstairs on the wooden floor, Mujukin still didn't understand anything. He sat on a chair and pondered. Do you want to leave the formation peak? On the other side, Yang Shui ran back to her yard angrily and rushed into the living room. What's wrong with Shui? There was another person sitting in the living room. When he saw Yang Shui coming in, he got up from the futon. Yang Shui threw herself into the man's arms, and the man patted her back lovingly. What's wrong with Shui? Who bullied daddy's baby? Tell daddy and daddy will take care of him. Yes, it's the third senior brother, dad. He didn't bully me, he just made me unhappy. The man was Peak Master Yang. He frowned, with a hint of anger on his majestic face. His voice was a little cold as he said, "Schwer, tell me what's going on." So Yang Shui recounted what had just happened in Fangxi. Master Yang touched her chin where there was no beard. Then she looked at his daughter's expression. Combined with her changes over the past month, he immediately understood that his daughter might have fallen in love with him, his third disciple. He asked softly, "Shui likes your third senior brother, the kind of person who wants to be his Taoist companion?" Yang Shui nestled in his arms and nodded shyly. "Dad, Shui just likes him so much. If we don't see him for a day, I feel uncomfortable." Master Yang gently stroked her hair and sighed in his heart. This daughter has been without a mother since she was a child, and it was he who raised her up. Maybe it was because she didn't have a mother to take care of her and he was busy, so the child was not good at talking and smiling and was very silent since she was a child. Since meeting Mujukan, Shui seemed to have changed, almost like a normal person. But after listening to what Shui just said, it's obvious that the boy has a sweetheart or a Taoist companion, and has no intention of Shui. What should I do? But then he thought about it, as long as his daughter liked it, he would definitely find a way to make her submit. He doesn't allow anyone to make Shui sad, let alone hurt her. He patted her back and said, "Shui, be good, go to bed, Daddy will find a way to make your third senior brother treat you like before, okay?" Yang Shui nodded heavily. Yang Shui went to sleep obediently. Peak Master Yang walked to the training room, opened a secret passage and entered in a flash. The next day, the three of them met at the gate of Fangxi. Even though the three of them had used the face-changing technique, they still recognized them. "Wan'er, let's go see the yard first." "Well, let's go." "Fourth sister, brother-in-law, you go ahead, I'll wait for brother Shitu here," Xiaoliu said. The two of them didn't care much about her name. They used to call her that way, but when they first came here, they called her brother Jukan, and she followed suit. But others are not happy about it. At the corner of the entrance to Fangxi, Yang Shui was hiding there. She really heard that the female disciple who was as tall as her really called Mujukan her brother-in-law. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 239. Chapter 239, Extraterritorial Battlefield. Yang Shui bit her lip tightly, her eyes were full of hatred, she wanted her to die if she dared to her senior brother. She looked at Mujukan and Yuan's leaving figure. She stepped forward and was about a foot away. Mujukan took Yuan to the rows of residential houses behind Fangxi. He picked up a few keys from the steward's office. "Wan'er, look, this yard is big enough for Grandpa and the others to live in. This is the best place. It's also in Lifang City. The monthly rent is 100 spirit stones." Mujukan opened a house. He said to Yuan said. "It's okay, can I buy it?" Yuan asked. Renting a house for a year is not enough, but it is not a long-term solution. What she wants is for everyone to have a stable place to live. She doesn't like to have her family move around. If she has the ability, she can buy it. "Okay, cough, 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 but I don't have enough spirit stones at the moment," Mujukan said sheepishly. How could he compare with his wife in earning spirit stones? "How many?" 100,000 spiritual stones can be used for 100 years, and 1 million spiritual stones belong to you forever. Huh, who made this? It's quite a marketing technique. When Yuan heard this, she realized that this person was quite smart. There were still people who could afford to pay a lump sum of 100,000 spirit stones, such as herself. 1,000,000 spiritual stones is not something that a handyman disciple or an outer disciple can afford. The two of them walked around inside, and it was obvious that Mujukin still liked this courtyard quite a bit. Wanner, how about we rent here? No, we bought it. After saying this, she threw a storage bag to him. You go and handle it. I will move Grandpa Mu and the others out and clean it first. She has seen it. There is also a secondary formation disk in this yard, which can be activated at any time. It is much safer than the handyman peak. She has to go into the space and plant the main medicine of the foundation establishment pill. This. Yuan rolled her eyes at him. What the hell, go back quickly. Your name is written on the deed. Didn't you say that your inner disciples get preferential treatment? It would be a not to take advantage of it. She still needs room for her spiritual stones. Okay, Mujukin took the storage bag and went out. That's okay, the wife said that what's his is hers, what's hers is still hers, it's hers who writes it in the end, it doesn't matter who else. In the future, you can buy a small courtyard here, where just the two of you can live, he. He has to work hard to earn spiritual stones. Yuan activated the formation. She was not worried that Mujukin would not be able to enter later. When he took the deed, the entry and exit token for the formation would be given to him. She moved Mr. Mu's family out only when they reached a more spacious place. Huh? Girl Wan, have we changed places again? Mr. Mu asked as soon as he came out and saw that he was not in the valley. Ah, Grandpa Mu, is it nice here? Well, very good. The spiritual energy here is much stronger. Not bad, where is the brat? Mr. Mu turned around, nodded with satisfaction, and praised. He went to apply for the deed of the house. He will be here soon. Grandpa Mu, you can choose the yard and clean it up. From now on, you will live for a long time. We have all joined the Haoyu sect now. This house is Zhongmenfang City. It's convenient for anything. We have to go check out the store later. Yuan finished it all at once to avoid them not understanding. Mr. Mu smiled and narrowed his eyes, thinking to himself, these children have really suffered a lot, and they have gained a place in the sect in just a few months. Very good, very good. Okay, you are all good children, all of you are good. Grandpa's decision was the right one, ha ha ha. Dad, would you like to see the yard? We can clean it up for you. The corners of Uncle Mu's mouth twitched, and his father's laughter made his ears hurt. What are you looking for? It's just any house with such a nice courtyard. I'm happy today, ha ha ha. Yuan's lips twitched. Mr. Mu is really a kind-hearted person. What makes Grandpa happy? Mujukin pushed the door open and entered. I'm glad that all of you are very experienced. Mr. Mu stroked his beard and wanted to laugh again. Grandpa, please stop laughing. Infiltrate people. Wanner, the person in charge just got the deed for the store, which is in the row in front of our house. How about it? It's more favorable, right? After everything was done, I asked her. However, whether the store is good or not will not affect her future purchase of elixirs, and the aroma of wine does not matter if the alley is deep. Well, Wanner is smart. Then, you keep it. Mujukin put the deed in her hand. There was nothing safer than her space. Okay, she opened the deed and read it. They were 2 purchase contracts. There were no harsh terms in them, and the price was right. It only cost 130,000 spirit stones to add a shop. Of course they belonged to Mujukin's inner disciples. Special price. Then you go clean up the shop. It will open in 2 days. I have to go into the space and plant the main ingredient of the foundation building pill, Yuan said to Mujukin. Okay, just leave these things to me. Mujukin was quite happy. They finally settled down. No wonder Grandpa smiled so happily. This was indeed something worth being happy about. Some of the indigenous people here have no fixed place to live their whole life, and they spend their whole life worrying about those few spiritual stones. They came from a small world to this unfamiliar world where strength is valued. Their achievements today are indeed the result of their hard work. Of course, most of them rely on their wives. Without her, they would just be living in Dian, eating and waiting to die. "Let's go, Grandpa, let's go," Mujukan called Mr. Mew, and he and his grandson waved to Yuan and went out. Yuan found a secluded place and slipped into the space. In the space, she did not withdraw much spiritual stones during this period, and there was not much spiritual energy left. She hurriedly entered the red soil, planted the second-level elixir seedlings and foundation-building pill seedlings she bought, and then scattered the remaining several thousand spirit stones on the ground. Then she looked specifically at the elixir plant planted for Xiaojin. The third level is the third level. It has only grown up a little bit after so long in the space. The plant that the little snake ate in the past has grown less than the third level now. It seems that if Xiaojin wants to break through to the third level in a short time, he may not be able to do so quickly. He can only find a mature elixir for him if he has a chance. On the other hand, the little snake has returned to the world of immortality. Its cultivation is steadily recovering, and it is now in the middle of the third level. Yuan smiled. There was a little expert in fighting, and she entered the battlefield outside the territory, and her chances of winning the Foundation Establishment pill were even better. Killing monsters is her favorite. Of course, the main purpose is to build the Foundation pill. Try to get one for both of them. They are both at the 12th level of Qi training, so they can be given to anyone. She was worried that one Foundation Establishment pill would not be enough for one person to break through. If there were two, he would be able to succeed without any accident. Yuan came out after collecting some spiritual grains and vegetables in the space. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 240. Chapter 240 Attacked. Huh? Why are you here? Yuan bumped into Mujukan as soon as she came out. She wanted to ask him how he found the space she entered here so that others could find it, and whether she wanted to live. Well, for a while, the shop was cleaner than my face, and there was nothing to clean up, so my grandpa and I came back. Mujukan took her hand and came out to the middle of the yard. The yard was now tidied up. Mrs. Su, Mrs. Mu and Miss Mu were also cleaning the courtyard in a good manner. Yuan sighed a few times. His hands that were once clean from Yang Chunshui no longer had to do everything by themselves. Environment creates people. Yuan left the Gao family behind and helped them cook and cook. She and Mujukan also returned to the sect, one to the inner sect and the other to the miscellaneous peak. The road back to Zaofeng has to pass through a section of mountain forest. This section of road happens to be a naturally formed road connecting Zheong Peak and the outer gate square, so this section has not been rebuilt. In fact, it doesn't matter whether it is repaired or not. The road is not narrow and can accommodate a horse. This section of the road is full of trees and overgrown weeds, but there is a cliff on the other side. If someone falls down accidentally, his life will be lost. But if you fall from such a wide road, let me see. You can't fall down, but there are still accidents. For example, if someone kills people and dumps their bodies here, the monsters under the cliff can help you destroy the bodies and eliminate traces. At this time, there were no disciples going back and forth, and Yuan was walking alone on the road. Suddenly, a chill ran down her back, as if a poisonous snake and beast were staring at her from behind. Yuan looked back, and there was no one breathing behind her. There is a problem only if no one is breathing. She sped up and ran towards the miscellaneous peak. Suddenly, a suffocating spiritual power locked her, and before she could react, she had already rolled down the cliff. At this time, a man in black clothes looked down to make sure there was no sound coming from the cliff. He looked at it with disdain and disappeared into the dense forest. If Mujukan was here, he would definitely recognize the owner of that figure. From the time the incident occurred to the time the man in black left, only a dozen breaths passed. At this time, everything was calm, as if Yuan had never passed by here. In the space, Yuan had already passed out. She entered the space the moment she rolled to the bottom of the cliff. However, she could not hold on due to severe internal injuries and fainted after taking the elixir into her mouth. That man not only shattered her internal organs with spiritual power, but also knocked her off the cliff. This was obviously not leaving her any chance of survival. If she had no space, she would definitely fall into a pile of flesh when she fell onto the cliff, and even the great god of Luo could not save her. Yuan didn't know how long she had been in the space before she woke up. She didn't even have to guess. The person who made the move must be Yang Shui's person. Still a master. It's just that she didn't guess which one it was. She doesn't have the ability yet. She's not familiar with the sect and doesn't know the strength of each peak. She healed her injuries in the space before taking the little snake out of the space. Master, do you want me to go find out who did it? The little snake said angrily. The master's luck was running out. On the third day after entering the sect, someone plotted against him. Yuan shook her head. There were too many powerful monks in the section. Don't steal the chicken but lose the rice. The little snake was caught. Can she get it back? No need. Do you think there is any elixir here? There is a forest below, with steep cliffs on both sides. The woods are full of spiritual energy. She guessed that since few people have been here, there must be a lot of elixirs. Okay, the little snake became angry again. It was still an obedient snake and immediately flew away to find the elixir. Of course I want to see if there is any magic medicine for my wife to take first. The little snake left. For safety reasons, she released the little gold to prevent the monster from attacking. There was Xiaojin to guard her, and she also dug up elixirs around her. There are so many. Yuan finished digging around. She looked at the elixirs piled in the space. After quickly planting them in the ground, she came out and dug again. She wants to dig out all the elixirs in this forest here, which is a shameful waste. This is enough for her to refine many elixirs. Just as I was thinking about it, the little snake flew over with a roar. Master, hurry up and enter the space. Yuan Wen didn't ask why. With a flash of consciousness, the three masters and servants entered the space. Whose treasure did you steal? The moment he entered the space, the roar of the monster chasing behind him was full of anger and unwillingness. Don't think about this guy stealing someone else's things. How dare the little snake hide it from her? A lot of elixirs and a spiritual fruit tree floated out from its small body. There are many first and second level elixirs, and there are actually more than a dozen third level elixirs. These third level elixirs are useless against monsters and beasts, and they will not cause the monsters to chase after you in a hurry. She looked at the spiritual fruit tree and looked carefully. The fruit tree was 10 feet tall, with green leaves and red fruits as big as a thumb hanging between the leaves. Yuan searched in her mind and found out that this was the case. This is the third level spiritual fruit, small red vermilion fruit. It is the main ingredient for refining the third level elixir red jade pill. It is used by golden elixir monks and has the same effect as the chi gathering pill. At the golden elixir stage, the monk's cultivation level grows more slowly, and he will use elixirs to improve his cultivation level. This little red vermilion fruit is also fatally attractive to monsters. Monsters can also increase their cultivation level after eating it. So the little snake stole someone's fruit tree. She looked at the limp little snake and grabbed it in her hand. Its small body trembled uncontrollably. How afraid of her are you? To be honest, she really didn't clean it up seriously, let alone beat it. Okay, don't pretend to be dead. Pick some for Xiaojin to go into retreat. In a month, we still have a tough battle to fight. She patted the little snake. The fruit tree came in time. Why did she do anything to it? The little snake immediately became energetic after hearing this, flew to the ziazu fruit tree, and began to pick fruits. "Oh, little snake, by the way, as long as you have no use for your collection, you can give it to the master. Okay, I will help you raise more elixirs and fruits in the future." She suddenly remembered the little snake's collection. The ones she had been given to her before were all that could be used during the chi training period, so she simply let him take them out this time. It's like squeezing out toothpaste. A snake can't use it anyway. Pa, the little snake was so frightened that it fell to the ground. "Master, can it be said that it is not allowed?" Its triangular eyes looked at Yuan pitifully. The master was searching for its treasure again, which it had treasured for so long. Okay, it is no match for the master's knife eyes, and its body feels cold. As soon as its consciousness moved, things flew out of it and piled up into a small mountain. Yuan stared at the pile of things and swallowed, "No more." The little snake's small body shook a few more times, and this time what came out was half the size of the previous one. End of this chapter.